Welcome back to Deep Dive. Today we've got a pretty intense submission to unpack,
Yeah, this one comes from an online relationship advice forum.
and it lays out a situation that seems to escalate quite dramatically.
Definitely. We're diving into one person's account of their relationship, looking at how passive aggression might have spiraled into something, frankly, really dark and disturbing.
Right. Alarming suspicions about her partner's actions.
Yeah.
It really challenges, maybe our assumptions about what destructive behavior looks like.
So our mission today is to sort of break down this account, look at the behaviors described in the post.
Yeah, trace that escalation that seems to happen.
Exactly, and examine the reactions of both people involved, at least as they're presented.
And really try to pull out the core insights from this pretty unsettling story.
What hits you straight away, I think, is how deeply personal it is, the violations suspected.
Oh, absolutely. The person sharing it clearly has this strong, almost visceral reaction.
And the details, as we'll get into, they quickly move past just, typical relationship arguments.
Into potentially abusive territory, yeah.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The relationship itself, according to the source, it's been going for about a year and a half.
Right. So long enough to feel like you know someone, establish routines.
But maybe also long enough for less obvious issues to surface, especially under stress.
And the person posting, she immediately points to a core problem with her boyfriend, Adam.
Yeah, she describes this significant passive-aggressive streak. It comes out when he's upset or when they disagree.
It sounds like it's not just an occasional thing.
No, the post frames it as his go-to response, a consistent pattern in how he handles conflict or negative feelings.
And she explains how it shows up. Like when he's mad, he doesn't talk about it.
Right, he gets quiet, moody, withdraws completely.
And if she tries to talk, to sort things out,
Then, according to the post, he flips it, accuses her Eve of trying to keep the fight going.
the classic shutdown tactic, deflecting.
Exactly. It stops any real communication dead in its tracks, avoids responsibility.
And this connects to another point she makes about him wanting to just reset after a fight,
Yeah, like pretending it never happened, just moving on.
which isn't really resolving anything, is it? It's
Oh,
just avoiding it.
Precisely. It leaves everything simmering under the surface. Unresolved issues, resentment.
Yeah.
It all just builds.
And the source itself flags this immediately, calls it out as a massive red flag.
Yeah, the post essentially says this inability to handle conflict healthily. It basically screams, avoid this person.
A breakdown in just fundamental relationship skills, navigating difficulties together.
And when you have that kind of foundation, avoidance, deflection, where does all that negativity go?
Well, this account suggests it finds other outlets, more damaging ones.
And that's where the story takes a really unsettling turn. Her concerns shift from, frustrating relationship habits.
To something much more sinister.
Right. It started subtly, apparently months before she wrote the post, noticing little things with her electronic toothbrush.
Okay, like what sort of things?
Finding it off its charger, sometimes lying on its side, maybe just shifted slightly on the counter.
Small anomalies.
Yeah.
Easy to brush off initially.
Yeah, and she says she did. She tried to rationalize it, Maybe the counter is small. Maybe she bumped it.
Or just being forgetful. You put things down without thinking sometimes.
Totally natural reaction. You look for the simple explanation first.
But these little things,
Yeah,
they started to escalate.
that's what the post describes. It reached a point where it became much harder to ignore. The real turning point for her was finding the toothbrush wet.
Wet, as in recently used.
Exactly. But at random times during the day, not after she'd used it morning or night.
But hours later, when she absolutely knew she hadn't touched it,
Yeah. And if she didn't use it,
then someone else did.
given the context, the passive aggression, the timing, her suspicion immediately fell on him.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge leap. From maybe knocking it over to deliberate use, that's a violation.
A massive boundary crossed. Your toothbrush is incredibly personal. The idea someone else is using it without permission.
Especially your partner, in the context of him being upset, it just feels charged, malicious almost.
It implies intent, right? Not just absent-mindedness.
And then it gets worse. The detail that just turns your stomach.
Yeah, the source includes this one observation that's just horrifyingly specific.
What was it?
She says, one time, she noticed something on the brush head. Something that looked like it had been used to clean grout.
Grout. Like between the bathroom tiles.
Yes, that level of unsanitary, repulsive.
Oh my God, that's not just using it. That's contamination. That's deliberate degradation.
It really shifts the whole thing, doesn't it? From potentially weird passive aggression to something actively vile and vindictive?
The level of malice you'd need to even think of doing that,
Yes.
using someone's toothbrush for cleaning.
It suggests an intent to inflict disgust, maybe even harm, in this hidden, insidious way.
It feels so calculated.
No.
Not a flare-up, not yelling, but this secret, disgusting act.
Designed to make her feel awful, maybe without even knowing exactly why at first. Weaponizing personal hygiene.
So faced with this, the wet brush, the grout thing, she decides she needs more information.
Yes, the post says she took a really practical step. Smart, actually.
What did she do?
She bought a second toothbrush, a small spare one.
Okay, why? Just have a clean one.
No, it was specifically to test her theory, like setting up a little experiment, a control.
Right. So what did she do with the spare one?
She hid it, tucked it away in her makeup bag, somewhere Adam wouldn't normally look or have reason to go into.
Ah, clever. So the idea was, if her main toothbrush, the one left out, was being messed with.
Would this hidden one also be disturbed, or would it be left alone?
And what happened? Did he find it?
According to her account, no. The hidden toothbrush never touched, never moved, nothing.
Wow, that really strengthens her suspicion, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It makes it seem much less likely to be accidental or about shared space. It points towards the tampering being intentional and specifically targeted at her regular toothbrush.
The one associated with her, left in the usual spot, linked, potentially, to when he's angry.
Exactly. The pattern seems deliberate based on this test.
Okay, so now she's got this circumstantial evidence. Her gut is probably screaming at her.
And this truly disgusting suspicion hanging over her.
She decides to confront him. That must have been incredibly difficult.
Just imagine trying to voice that accusation, how bizarre and awful it sounds.
But she did it. She asked him directly.
Yeah, the source says she put it right out there. Asked him point blank.
Do you know what she said?
Paraphrasing from the source, it was something like, "Are you doing something to my toothbrush when you're mad at me?" Very direct.
Linking it right to his anger, to the pattern she suspected. No room for misunderstanding what she's asking.
And his response, as she describes it, this is where it really tips into psychological manipulation territory.
What did he do? Did he deny it? Get angry?
Not exactly defensive in a normal way. His reaction was apparently immediate and just dismissive. He laughed.
Laughed at an accusation like that.
Laughed, then called her crazy, said, "You're crazy."
Whoa.
And then just refused to discuss it any further. Shut it down completely.
Okay, the source calls this textbook gaslighting, a masterclass in manipulation. Let's unpack why that reaction fits.
Right. Gaslighting aims to make you doubt your own reality, your perception, your sanity.
So the laughter that minimizes her concern makes it seem ridiculous.
Precisely. It trivializes something she clearly finds deeply disturbing. And calling her crazy is a direct attack on her judgment, her mental state.
It's not just denying the action, it's saying her perception of the action is flawed because she's flawed.
Exactly. He's basically saying, the problem isn't my behavior, the problem is your crazy head. It shifts the focus entirely off him.
And refusing to talk about it just locks her into that doubt.
Yes. It leaves her totally isolated with this horrifying suspicion and his complete dismissal. No chance for clarification, no explanation, just, "You're crazy," end of discussion.
It forces her to question herself. Am I crazy? Did I imagine the wetness? The grout?
It's incredibly effective because the suspected act is so bizarre, it makes the gaslighting even more potent. Part of her might want to believe she's crazy rather than believe he'd do that.
Which leads right into the psychological toll this takes on her, which the source describes really powerfully.
Yeah, she talks about feeling like she lacks hard proof, like no hidden camera footage.
Which makes it harder to feel certain, maybe harder to convince anyone else, especially when he's telling her she's imagining things.
But against that lack of proof is her gut feeling. The source says her primal instinct is screaming at her.
So it's not just a small doubt, it's this powerful internal conviction clashing with his denial and the lack of a smoking gun.
That conflict, his reality versus her intuition and observations, creates immense stress, cognitive dissonance.
And the specific thing she suspects, it's chilling. That he's doing something utterly disgusting, like putting it in the toilet.
Or worse, she says. That or worse is terrifying. It speaks to the level of malice she believes he's capable of.
That it's purely to get back at her. Punishment, degradation, hidden, revolting punishment.
It's fundamentally abusive if true, A profound violation.
And this explains why she hasn't told anyone.
Right.
That the source mentions that.
Yeah, she explicitly says, I haven't told anyone because it's honestly humiliating and gross.
And you can understand why. How do you even start that conversation? I think my boyfriend might be cleaning the toilet with my toothbrush.
There's the fear of not being believed, the fear of judgment, the sheer shame of it. It's incredibly isolating.
Which is often part of the pattern in abusive situations, right? The actions themselves create shame and make it hard to seek help.
And the gaslighting reinforces that isolation. If he's making her doubt herself, how can she confidently tell someone else?
She describes feeling trapped between thinking I'm paranoid and realizing I might be with someone who would literally put my toothbrush in the toilet to get back at me.
That's such a terrifying place to be mentally. Either your reality is fragmenting or you're intimately involved with someone capable of truly horrific cruelty.
Oscillating between those two possibilities, the psychological weight must be immense.
Which brings us to the analysis in the source material itself. It argues strongly that this isn't just a normal relationship problem.
Right, not just a fixable communication issue.
Yeah.
Not something you just go to therapy for and work through, like, say, different spending habits.
The suspected actions, the grout, the potential toilet contamination, and crucially, the gaslighting response, they shift the diagnosis.
The source suggests it points to a core character flaw, something deeper. Deeply ingrained malice, I think was the phrase used.
Yeah, and that this malice is being weaponized in these disgusting ways.
Weaponized implies intent, calculation, using personal vulnerability to inflict harm.
And the source concludes this whole pattern, the passive aggression escalating to suspected revolting acts, plus the manipulation. It's a deeply disturbing pattern of control.
Control through degradation and control through undermining her reality.
And his reaction, the laughing, the you're crazy, the refusal to talk isn't just a denial. The source sees it as further proof of that controlling, manipulative character.
It's an attempt to shut down the accusation by destroying her credibility, even to herself.
The analysis is clear. This signals a deeply unhealthy and potentially dangerous dynamic. It's way beyond incompatibility.
It suggests the initial red flags about conflict avoidance were just the tip of the iceberg.
A stark reminder that some lines, when crossed, indicate a fundamental lack of respect and safety in a relationship. Behaviors meant to degrade, isolate, and confuse. They aren't just issues.
They're potentially signs of abuse. The violation of trust and dignity here, as described, is profound.
And the psychological damage of being potentially targeted like this, while also being told you're imagining it, it's incredibly destructive.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive. What are the main takeaways from this disturbing account?
Well, we saw this narrative of passive aggression, the silent treatment, the blame shifting potentially escalating into truly vile hidden acts, suspected contamination of a personal hygiene item, timed with his anger.
And when confronted, the response wasn't explanation or even simple denial, but classic gaslighting. Laughter, calling her crazy, shutting down the conversation entirely.
Which, as the source highlights, isolates the victim, makes them doubt their own sanity, and leaves them trapped in this awful uncertainty. The humiliation makes it hard to even talk about.
So the moral takeaway, if you like, that the source presents from this experience.
I think it boils down to recognizing that escalation. When disrespect moves from passive avoidance to active degrading acts, even hidden ones, pay attention to that shift.
And crucially, identify those manipulative tactics designed to shut you down and make you question yourself. The dismissal, the attacks on your sanity.
Trust your gut. That's a huge theme here. Even when something feels bizarre, even when someone is telling you you're wrong or crazy, that deep intuitive feeling that something is profoundly off. Listen to it.
Especially when faced with behavior that seems designed to erode your sense of reality and self-worth. Your instincts are a powerful survival mechanism.
This account, as extreme as it sounds, really forces you to think about the insidious nature of psychological manipulation and hidden abuse.
It makes you consider how incredibly difficult it must be when the person closest to you might be systematically undermining your reality, doing things that are almost too disgusting and bizarre to believe, let alone articulate. It really underscores the importance of holding on to your own perception, even when someone is trying to wrench it away.
Comment below. What would you do?